Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Sasan Goodarzi, who is the CEO of Intuit, which you may know through QuickBooks, TurboTax, Mailchimp, and many more. Sasan, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
So we are talking about some of the new products you've launched in the generative AI realm. I know you had some announcements back in June. So talk a little more about what's now coming to market.
Sure. Well, first of all, we serve consumers and small businesses, and the small businesses that we serve are up to about like 100 employees, and so think about these folks that are trying to figure out, well, how do I grow my business? How do I get more customers? How do I keep them? How do I manage my cash flow? Cash flow is one of the top reasons why a small business goes out of business. And for a consumer, it's, the majority of consumers are trying to make ends meet. They're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to get their largest paycheck of the year, at least in US and Canada when it comes to their taxes. So those are the sort of the realm of the customer problems that we are solving. And about 5 years ago, we said strategically that we wanted to create a future. It was aspirational, but a future where the work was done for you, that we could bring an assistant in the pocket of your hands to help you make decisions and to power your prosperity. And I'm really excited, because today, 5 years later, after a lot of incredible investments in our customers' data and technology, particularly AI and generative AI, we are launching, a set of capabilities across all of our platform, all the brands that you mentioned, called Intuit Assist. Where in essence, we have an assistant that can do things like help you create and run a marketing campaign and tell you how it's performing and strategize with you on, well, what's next? Help you manage your cash flow, which products are doing well, which ones are not, what do we need to do to improve your cash flow? And if you're a consumer, choices you may need to make ends meet. If you just had a big flat tire with your car and you had to get a tow truck to come pick up your car and change out your tire, and it may cost you $1,000 and you don't have that money, well, how are you going to pay for it? To making sure that you get the largest tax refund of the year. I mean, those are big financial decisions that a consumer and a small business has to make. And now with Intuit Assist, you have an assistant by your side that can help you with those choices and decisions while you're always in control. So today is an exciting day. It's the next exciting era of Intuit, and I can't wait to see what we do for our customers.
So let me ask you about one of the interesting, everybody is doing a lot in the realm of generative AI, and I want to, because it's such a broad category that everybody's doing various elements of it, what is the unique sort of proprietary advantages that you have in this space? Because at one point we were talking about data being the new oil. Now we, of course, there's been a lot of attention on ChatGPT and some of the other companies. What do you think is it the data you have that is the unique advantage in this realm, or have you built a lot of this ground up? I want to get a sense as a leader, how you're thinking about AI.
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I'll start with, and I'll come back to this at the end. It all starts with the customer, and if there's a large unmet customer problem to be solved, where technology can solve it in a way that's so much better than the current way that the customer is doing it. So, in all of this buzz around technology and generative AI, it's important we don't lose sight of the customer, and is what we're doing really adding value? Is it delivering a benefit? With that as context, it actually all starts with the data. You mentioned data as the new oil. When we declared our strategy 5 years ago, one of the core elements that we said we must be great at was data, and then it's AI. And I'll give you an example. For a small business, we have about 500,000 financial attributes per small business. And so what does that mean? We see your income streams, we see your spending, we see all of the vendors you deal with, we see all of your employees, we can see all of the sort of credit worthiness of your customers and your vendors. And so we see your cash flow. So we have a lot of data points And those data points are essential because in order for me to be insightful for you as a small business,
Yeah.
I actually have to know something about you. I can't be, one of the things about small businesses or consumers that we've learned, especially as we've prepared for today's launch, is they're not interested in generic recommendations. They're looking for, what can I do? So it's all about the data. And in fact, when we acquired Credit Karma and Mailchimp, which were $20 billion worth of acquisitions, it was actually all about the data and AI capabilities, because now we had a holistic view of the customer's data that would allow us to create this future of done for you. So that's the second point, is we have to have a big customer problem, and it is all about the uniqueness of the data of what you know about them. So that makes us very unique, because nobody has the 360 view of all of the data that we have. That's our customers' data for consumers and small businesses. I think then the other element is we've got about a 10-year head start. We started talking about and investing in machine learning before it was called machine learning 10 plus years ago. But 5 years ago, we said there is a world where, by accelerating our investments in AI, which is natural language processing, knowledge engineering, and machine learning, that we could actually create this future of done for you. So we've been heavily investing in these areas of AI for the last 5 years. In fact, a lot of our innovation across the company prior to today was all fueled by AI and data and everything that I've just shared. Now, we've taken it to the next level of uniqueness. A few years ago, we started investing in generative AI. And what we just most recently launched in June is our generative operating system. And this generative AI operating system, what's very unique about it is we have created Intuit's financial large language models. And we train these large language models on the customer's data. It does not leave our firewall. It's within our platform. And that's where the uniqueness comes in. So therefore, now let me go back to where I started, which is there's got to be a customer problem to solve. We can now help a small business if, let's just say, you own a furniture store and you just come out with a new line of modern furniture. Now, our customer within Mailchimp can say, hey, I want to sell this new furniture that I just came up with. Can you put together a marketing campaign? And so we'll work with the customer and give them prompts on, we suggest, based on your customer profile, that we target these 12,000 customers that you have in the Northeast. We put together the campaign, which will include visuals, content, and then we'll put the control in your hands. We'll say, do you like what you see? Do you want to make the text more aggressive? Do you want to change any of the visuals? But we do all of that for you, and you're just simply making choices. So it's almost like you're sitting across your marketing department and have a dialogue with them, except that marketing department is our Mailchimp platform because of all the data that we have. And then we send off the campaign.
Now, Mailchimp, I can understand. That's very intuitive to me, the value proposition. When I think about TurboTax, that's a really interesting neighborhood because, with generative AI, for example, we saw Italy try to ban it. We've heard Sam Altman of, ChatGPT talk about the need to regulate it. That is perhaps the most sensitive area of our lives, is taxes. And how do you think about both the opportunities and the risks from an AI point of view?
It's a great question. First of all, I'll start with we have published AI on our website and governance around AI. And some of the examples I was using earlier are actually very, very important. And so we have built our own large language models, and we train the large language models on our data that's within our platform, that's the customer's data. And we also, one of the things that's not part of generative AI, but it's part of AI in general, is what we've developed. It's proprietary to us, and it's called knowledge engineering. And knowledge engineering takes all of the tax rules and the relationship between the customer's data and turns it into code. And it's the essence of it, the benefit of it, is all about accuracy. It's about quality of the answers, because when we help customers with answers, when we're doing their taxes for them or with them, we can't sort of be right. We have to be right because it's taxes. And so we've built a lot of both technology and human governance around all of our technology capabilities. And we don't train large language models outside of our four walls with the customer's data. It's within our four walls. So we have full control over what we launch. And in fact, everything that's launching today as part of the Intuit Assist Gen AI launches have all had second, third set of eyes, human eyes, on what is it that we are launching? Is it providing accurate answers? So we take this stuff very seriously because we play with people's money, and you can't be sort of directionally right.
And it's interesting because obviously a lot of companies have not made that investment, and they are now looking at, let's just call them third-party vendors, that they are essentially using those models and training them with their data. Is that dangerous in your mind? I mean, is that something that, what advice would you have to fellow leaders about using external tools?
Well, let me, it's a great question. Let me say a few things. Let me just share what we do. First of all, we also have data stewardship principles beyond the AI principles that I mentioned. And our principles are that, one, it's the customer's data, not ours. We will only use that data for the benefit of customers, and we will never sell that data. And that's really important because in our case, we train our own large language models that are within our four walls. We do not train any external large language models on the data because we cannot risk that data. It's the customer's data. We cannot risk
plus
the privacy.
You disrupt
you
risk disrupting yourself too, right? In those situations.
That's exactly right. But the bigger thing for us is when the data leaves your walls, you're no longer in control. And that's a big strategic focus area for us. Now, I believe the external tools by the companies that have developed these large language models can be quite helpful. And by the way, we, partner with some of these companies. Our focus is, part of our Gen OS operating system is actually about not only how we use our own large language models to train our own data on it, but we also will use external large language models to also compare that same example of a small business with potentially other small businesses that are outside of our walls to help with comparison and context. I think from that perspective, it's quite helpful. It's quite helpful to really bring the professional resource grade and thinking to a small business or a consumer. But I think fundamentally the guidance I would give to other leaders is it's all about the data. It's the customer's data. And you need to have the right balance of training your own large language models on that data and have relationships, but make sure that in those relationships, you're very thoughtful about what you're doing with the customer's data. Because the moment the customer loses trust in not only the accuracy of the answer in our world, but also what you're doing with their data, that's where AI can be used for the bad and not the good.
I want to pivot a bit because just from the recent GOP debates, and it's been an ongoing conversation. I'm curious about this dichotomy we have where people talk about money. Do we invest in the IRS or Homeland Security? And it came up again in the debates where it was, we should be I would hire fewer, IRS agents, more border agents. I don't know how that ever became an either or, but from where you sit, what do you think about that? And, give us your perspective of maybe not the IRS, but just the debate itself.
Well, we're always faced with trade-offs at Intuit, and I'll just share, our approach to how we think about things like that. First and foremost, in context to your question, I think it starts with what problem are we trying to solve as we're thinking about, do we add more dollars and investments to IRS versus Homeland Security? And based on the problem we're trying to solve, where do we believe technology and building capability can really significantly help us solve that problem? And then we all live in a world of prioritization, right? Whether it's Homeland Security, whether it's the IRS or the many other aspects that the government has to manage. You only have so many dollars to apply to the problems that are the biggest problems that you need to solve. And then it comes down to, to trade-offs, because at the end of the day, you can't fund everything and fund it well. So principally, that's the approach we use. Is there a big problem? Can we solve it with technology and capabilities? And then where does it sit on the prioritization realm? And we have principles around prioritization that we use as a company, because if you don't have principles, like for instance, we have what's called a P0, a P1, a P2. And a P0, priority 0, always gets funded before a priority 1. And you have to know what is in those buckets and then make those choices. And so that would be the way I would think about it to make that decision, because at the highest level becomes a tough conversation to have. It depends on the specific benefits.
That sounds like, and fair enough, you don't want to answer the question directly, which I appreciate. But but from an IRS, I mean, one of the TurboTax certainly is about, I think, improving the experience of filing one's taxes. How are we doing on that front? It still is one of those things that I think induces a lot of angst, and certainly there's a lot of cities, post-pandemic, et cetera, that are worried about tax collections. I mean, it's just an ongoing source of stress for people. Is there a role for AI? Is there a role for more technology? I mean, where should the smart money be going?
I think it's a great question. First of all, you're so right. I mean, we deal with over 55 million customers that do their taxes with us, and tax time is always filled with angst. For most, it's the largest paycheck of the year. For some, they owe money, but the reason it's about angst is it's about confidence. Am I doing it right? Is the person I'm working with doing it right? Am I going to get my largest amount of money? Am I paying the least as long as I've done things the right way? So that's why it's such a big angst for everyone. And I think there's an enormous opportunity to solve what we view as the largest problem that's unsaid, which is about confidence. That's where the angst comes from. It's confidence. Is it being done right? Are the numbers right? Am I getting the largest check of the year? And I think that data and AI, which is where we've been investing, and by the way, partnering with the IRS in terms of the investments they need to make, because it takes the both of us to deliver a great end-to-end experience for the customer. Mm-hmm. And I would say data and AI can absolutely be revolutionary, whether you do your taxes yourself, or by the way, the majority of Americans have somebody else do their taxes for them. And it's a very manual process with errors and mistakes. And I think technology plays an incredible role. And I would want us to make sure that the IRS is getting the technology investments that it needs to be able to deliver a great experience, to make sure customers are getting their money, they're getting it on time, that if we're going to audit someone, we know who we're going to audit. And if we're going to send letters of follow-up, we send it to the right folks. Those are very important technology investments that I would want the IRS to be getting, so that together we can deliver great experience no matter how somebody gets their taxes done.
So Sasan, in terms of the transformative power of AI, as a leader, obviously there's been a lot of discussion around the impact it has on the workforce, helping us work better, replacing people and jobs. When you look at your own company, what impact does it have on how you hire, who you hire, or the sort of bulk number of people that you manage?
Well, I'll start with something I said on the record 5+ years ago, and many laughed at the time when I said this, but it was the notion that AI would ignite global innovation across every single industry and remake customer experiences and remake how companies work. And I believe it's the third biggest thing since electricity and the internet. That's the kind of profound impact that I believe it will have. And I also don't think we really understand the impact that it will have. It will create a future that even today, is hard to imagine. And I think it will fundamentally and completely change how work gets done within companies. All the examples I was just using for you in terms of how we will be the assistant next to a small business and a consumer and all the things we'll be able to do to power their prosperity, a lot of that will apply internally. I'll start with areas that we've actually already been investing in around AI and Gen AI that's completely changed the network of what we call experts that we hire. So part of what we do to help our small businesses and consumers is on our platform, we digitally connect them to a bookkeeper, an accountant, somebody to help do their taxes for them or to do their accounting for them. And these are a network of experts that are virtual. And technology plays an enormous role in that. And so a lot of the Gen OS discussion we were just having, when an expert is engaging, with a customer, we now provide that expert insights based on what we know about the customer. It's all through AI and data in terms of what questions to ask them, what insights to provide the customer. We auto-magically capture the entire conversation. So it's all documented what they talked about. And then if the expert wants to do a follow-up, they can cut and paste based on everything that was automatically generated for them. So that's an example of massive work that's been changed in the last several years, where we've actually had the ability to help our experts add a lot more value versus do manual work. But I'll use another example for you. I think it will fundamentally change the work of engineers and data analysts. Like, for instance, I believe in the next couple of years, and we're experimenting with a lot of this internally right now, that a product manager, somebody in marketing can go in and go, how many customers used XY product yesterday, and what was the drop off in the funnel and why? Well, today you have to work with a lot of your data analysts, get in meetings and have that conversation. Well, I believe that all of that can automatically be done for you, and that creates a lot of elimination of manual work and a lot of sort of value add. And then I think it'll impact, well, how many folks do you need in certain areas? I think a lot of the coding for our engineers, I think almost 80% of the coding will get done for them. And so they can then focus on value-added code. So I think ultimately it will completely change the way the work gets done. And I think it will be good for the world. But I think companies have to be proactive in doing this testing and experimentation internally as they're doing externally to be more productive and smarter in how they do the work. And that's what we're doing right now.
One last question. Is there anything else on your radar that you would put on ours, Sasan, especially because you've got such a front row seat on aspects of the economy and what's going on? What's top of mind for you besides this, certainly big launch today, but anything else that you'd be putting, have us pay attention to right now?
Well, there are a couple of things I think that we're all paying attention to, but in the context of your question, I'll share, what's on my mind. One is just the health of global trade, and then two, it's just the health of consumers and small businesses. When I look at global trade, it actually peaked out almost 7 years ago. And so we're not doing a great job as a globe really importing and exporting and using each other's compelling superpowers, and we're more getting into sort of geographic positioning versus what's great for the globe. And I think that over time may not be best for the global economy. And I think the second is, I'm hoping that we come out of this current environment in the softest way possible. When I look at our base, and we have 100 million customers, so we have enough scale to see what's really happening. Mm-hmm. For small businesses, their cash reserves are today 90% of what it was a year ago, although they're actually healthier than they've been in the last 4 or 5 years. But still, they are healthy in this environment, but they're having to work much harder to achieve the same profitability as before. And consumers, on average since last March, their credit scores are down 13 points. The credit card balances are up over 30%. And Gen Z have the largest increase in their balances. It's up 45%. Now, the good news is we have a healthy job market. That also, though, indicates that the current environment is putting a little bit of a crunch on consumers. So I think the headline news, to answer to your question, is just continuing to work through the current sort of economic and social and geopolitical environment to make sure that the globe is in a healthier place a year from now than it is today.
And hopefully technology will help us get there. Sasan, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you. Take good care.
Thanks. Cheers.